pain that are intrinsically bad for us. On the aforementioned list, for example, falling down the stairs and being choked are typically harms of this sort. But sometimes this is because they take good things away from us by preventing us from being in states that are intrinsically good for us. With respect to this list, being passed over for promotion might be a harm of this sort. These are not mutually exclusive, of course. For example, some things that happen can cause us to be in intrinsically bad states and also prevent us from being in good ones. The counterfactual comparative account, I will argue, provides a unified treatment of all of these harms. I have thus far spoken about people as those who might suffer harm, but it is clear that many non-human animals can be harmed as well. Sometimes, however, we talk of harm to things such as personal property, businesses, the planet, and so on. Whether or not such things can be harmed depends on whether or not they can be made better or worse off. I accept the widely held view that this, in turn, depends on whether they have welfare levels, or levels of well-being, that are capable of rising or falling. Roughly speaking, a harm is something that interferes with or obstructs one's well-being. Those who think of harm as a setback to someone's interests and take interests to be distinct from well-being may think of being worse off in terms of the relevant interests. Not much will turn on this, but it seems clear that harm is a matter of one's well-being being interfered with in a certain way. As Victor Tadros puts it, well-being provides the currency of harm. Our automobiles and dining tables, for example, pretty clearly do not have levels of well-being that can be influenced by the course of events in the world. So, our talk of such objects being harmed must be taken to be loose or metaphorical talk. I will try to remain neutral with respect to competing accounts of the nature of well-being. For example, while I think that plants cannot strictly be harmed, nothing in the account that I defend commits me to this view. If you think that plants have a minimal level of well-being that can fall with damage and rise with healthy growth, for example, you may believe that plants can be harmed. Our disagreement will be about the components of well-being, but it need not be about the correct theory of harm. In his terrific and influential paper, Doing Away with Harm, Ben Bradley proposes a list of 7 desiderata for an account of harm. It will be helpful to consider them here. Bradley focuses on what he calls extrinsic overall harm. For example, a surgeon might cut and damage a patient's skin in order to perform a certain operation. The surgeon's act harms the patient, but it is not an overall harm. It is a pro tanto harm that, assuming the operation goes well, benefits the patient, all things considered. In ordinary circumstances, by way of contrast, falling down a flight of stairs would be an overall harm, or harmful all things considered, since it has no beneficial features. Something counts as an extrinsic harm, roughly, when it is harmful in virtue of what it brings about rather than any of its intrinsic properties. I will return to these notions in the first 2 chapters. For now, I will note that Bradley's list, with one exception, seems appropriate for any kind of harm. The first item on Bradley's list is extensional adequacy, according to which the analysis must fit the data. A lack of counterexamples is obviously desirable. An account of harm should not imply, for example, that there is no harm when intuitively there is, or that there is harm when intuitively there is not. An extensionally adequate account should also allow for harms of different magnitudes. The second desideratum is axiological neutrality. The analysis should not presuppose the truth of any specific account of well-being. This item seems inappropriate for the analysis of intrinsic harms or events that are in themselves harmful for a given person.